Well, good morning, everybody. My name's Doug Bowles. I'm president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thanks for being here on another sunny day in Indianapolis. We're hoping that the weather continues this way as we go through the next 11 days or so here in Indianapolis. The nice thing is it is Indianapolis weather, and I don't really pay attention until the night before or the morning of because it will change substantially. Hey, you know, one of the things that one of my prayers every day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the morning and the night is that somehow God uses the platform that I've been given in a way to do more than just promote the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And today we're in a situation where the man to my left, who was a superhero in race cars, from the moment he stepped in them, he drove everything. He drove open-wheel cars, he drove dragsters, he drove Indy cars. He won in all disciplines. He ran at NASCAR in one of those disciplines. And we know John Andretti for all of those great things that he's done on the racetrack. But over the last several months, John's in a different race. And not unlike his spirit and his fight, he has figured out a way to be a superhero in this new fight, in this new race that he's on. And he has taken a platform that he's been given through his racing and through what he's done in his career, and has figured out a way to take what, for most of us, would be a paralyzing incident, something that we probably would struggle to figure out how to manage it. Well, John has proven that he is a superstar, and we are here today to talk about that. To John's immediate left is Dave Wilson, one of the co-founders of the Race for Riley, one of the most successful fundraising efforts in the city of Indianapolis, that Dave and John somewhere down the line had a crazy idea that they should try and raise some money for Riley through racing go-karts, and it's turned out to be one of the most popular events of the year that takes place in and around our events here at the Speedway. Next to him, maybe the person that John is the most proud of, even more than his racing, is his son Jarrett. I had a chance to go see him run at Bubba Raceway Park in Daytona earlier this year, and it's pretty fascinating to see an Andretti in a sprint car sideways around a racetrack, it was really fun to see the Andretti roots truly being formed in short track racing, where so many of the Andrettis started their careers. Obviously, you know John to my left, and then to my right is Dr. Paul Helft from IU Health Physicians, who's going to talk a little bit about what we've got going here today. But with that, John, you have been given a pretty cool platform here, and I think from your racing career, you spent most of your time worrying about winning races, representing sponsors well, now worrying about helping your son make a professional career in racing. And why don't you talk a little bit about this new race that I don't think you wanted, but one you certainly have embraced and are making an unbelievable effort to make great things happen because of it.
Doug, I appreciate all the kind words. For me, it's when it came about was entirely unexpected. I turned 50 several years ago, and every year I get a physical, and I go through, and I understand what's happening, and when I do a physical, I do a full physical, and one thing I was always lacking was a colonoscopy, and I, you would ask about it or whatever, and I'd forget about it, and I never avoided it. It just didn't happen, and unfortunately, my wife has an issue that she has to go get them several times, and so she was in getting hers, and I decided to schedule mine, and I won't tell the whole story. It's a little bit boring, but I was about 3 minutes away from walking out of the next doctor's office because patience is not my strong suit, and so but fortunately I didn't. And immediately after the colonoscopy, they scheduled a surgeon. I was in surgery a few days later to have a tumor removed in another cancerous spot. Unfortunately, the tumor had spread outside the colon. We thought that it was going to be okay, and that we just, stage 3A, and that we would just do chemo and on the way you go, And so, unfortunately, I was having a lot of issues with the chemo, and it was a big struggle for me. And so they sent me in for scans, and they found it in my liver, and they think in my spleen as well. So they're not sure because they can't biopsy the spleen, as Dr. Helft will probably tell you. But so I'm scheduled for surgery. They want to get through halfway through my chemo, which Dr. Helft will do my 6th treatment here in Indianapolis. My other treatments have been in North Carolina, so I have a great team in both places looking after me, and that's been the plan. The biggest thing is that I've been pushing is the colonoscopies, obviously, because had I done it when I was 50 years old, there's a very, very good chance that I wouldn't be sitting here. But fortunately for me, I think that we've changed some people's lives. And I thought that I would get a few people to go, and I did. I forced a few people to go because I wasn't going to come public with it unless they did go. And they decided that it was worthwhile. One was my cousin Michael. I figured I'd never get him to go, so I would never have to go public with it. And 2 weeks later, he's doing it. And so he fought a little bit, but he didn't fight hard. And now the biggest part about this has been we've not only taken people that are not getting colonoscopies to get them, but they're becoming advocates of getting them done. And that's been the bigger part of it. It's grown, as they say, business-wise, organically. And people now are, it's almost like a mini movement that's getting even stronger every day, and we're going to talk more about that. But it sends chills through me because I never figured that people would get on board so quickly and in such volume that they have. And I love people telling me that they're going to get a colonoscopy, which I never thought that would ever be in my vocabulary. But it is, because it's life-changing, and it's life-changing for me, but it's more so for my family. And that's the part I hate. I hate the stress that I put on them for this, because this was definitely avoidable, and most of them are going to be avoidable if you get for early detection. So the big push is on, and I'm really proud of everybody that's kind of jumped on board with it. I mean, I came in today, and Michael bought the T-shirts for the entire team, and I was watching him move a transmission through the garage, and Jared's going, look at the T-shirt, and I'm like, what am I looking for? I'm too busy concentrating on why they're trying to move a transmission around and not even thinking about the people around it. And then I saw that, so it means a lot to me for all that to happen. We have some other cars that are doing it and things, but we're going to talk more about all that as we go on. But it's been a struggle, but the people around me have made it really, much easier. The prayers and everybody that's reached out to me. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to reach back out to everybody that has, but that even is better because I do it pretty regularly, and I don't work as hard as maybe Doug Bowles does, but I do work pretty hard to try to get in touch with everybody that does with me. And so I think I have a better respect for his job now, with everybody banging on his door every day, because now people are doing that to me, but in a very positive way. So it's exciting for me, and I guess the way to talk even more about this is to introduce Dr. Helft. Dr. Helft is my oncologist, GI oncologist up here. He's a IU health physician, and he had a lot of great comments for Nancy, which we won't repeat here, on how she's supposed to, make sure that I'm all in good, and everything. And I'm like, he was trying to help me out because she wasn't in the room with us. She was listening on the phone. But anyway, Dr. Helft, if you want to talk more about it.
Well, it was a great honor, of course, to meet you. And about half of all of my patients have colorectal cancer, so I specialize in that disease, in particular at IU Simon Cancer Center, where I've been for the past 16 years. And the majority of patients that I see with that disease walk in with advanced disease. And every day I think to myself and see the results of the fact that we don't get everybody screened as we should. So we're currently screening only about 60% of U.S. adults who are at risk for colorectal cancer starting at age 50. So we've got a long way to go still to do that. And some of you who are a little bit older may remember that nobody ever talked about colorectal cancer really probably until President Reagan got colon cancer decades ago now, and still to this day we don't talk about it often enough. It's a disease which affects 150,000 people a year, so it's about 10%, 9 or 10% of all cancers in the United States. And colonoscopy turns out to be an extremely good way of preventing death and mortality from colorectal cancer, because if you look, for example, in populations that get well screened, where everybody gets screened, the colon cancer mortality goes down by about 1/3. So we can shave off about 1/3 of all the deaths that we would experience from colorectal cancer by doing colonoscopies in everybody. So get your colonoscopy.
Well, and people always ask me about how did I know. There's almost a lot of times there's no symptoms.
That's right.
And so getting a colonoscopy is the only way. You know, you see the commercials and all that, get a colonoscopy. I mean, it's the way to really know. And people that walk out are completely relieved that they've done it, and it's an easy process. Trust me, like I said, Nancy's been doing it for years, and the process is so much easier today that it's way easier than doing this. I can guarantee you that, because I did both. So, but I did talk about the T-shirts a little bit earlier. The T-shirts is to get the word out, and as you can see, there's several of them in here. But the In It to Win It and hashtag Check It for Andretti. The reason we're doing the hashtag is to just understand who's getting them. We're trying to follow and keep path of the people that are really going to get the colonoscopy, whether it's related to this or not. That we just like to know, because it's a way for them to kind of be a part of it all. But then they're talking about it too. But you can actually go to the link. There's shopandretti.com, and you can order the shirts there. And as you mentioned, Race for Riley, which we'll get to that. The Race for Riley is an important thing to me and to Dave and to a lot of people here. Joe Stasiak and Rick Posson and all the people here. I mean, we have people that come out and just donate so much time and energy to it, because we're not a foundation. We love to raise money for Riley, and so the shirts are going to raise money for Riley. And thanks to BSN Sports for contributing and being part of that and making it happen too. So if you want to participate, if you don't want to wear the shirt, that's okay. But if you want to contribute to Riley and be a part of both causes, that would be awesome.
So one of the neat things about the Andretti name, I'll give you this, John, so you can show folks here in a minute, and really just the connections and the reputation that John has, not just throughout the IndyCar paddock, but throughout motorsport and sport in general. John, in a very short time, has reached out to some folks who have really put something together that crosses all racing genres, not just here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but in Charlotte and short tracks everywhere. So as we start leading into May, we're going to see the last week of May really is going to be Check It for Andretti week in some levels, because John has created a decal, and you're going to see this decal on cars in the Indy 500, cars in the Freedom 100, the Coca-Cola 600 NASCAR race. In fact, John just told me at the All-Star race this weekend there's going to be a car completely liveried in this. You're going to see it at the Red Bull Global Rallycross event in Louisville, the Tony Holman Classic in Terre Haute later this month, the Silver Crown Night at Lucas Raceway Park ahead of the race on Friday night, and then in the crazy Little 500 at Kokomo before the Indy 500. So this is something that has resonated not just with the folks in the IndyCar paddock, although you did get an opportunity to put the first decal on a car this morning. Why don't you talk about how that went?
Yeah, I came in and Ryan Rigsby's been a big part of this, putting this together, and so Andretti Autosport has produced all these decals, and so I put the first decal on the first car, and it is perfectly aligned and straight. I was going to actually put it on crooked so that it would drive my cousin nuts for the whole month, but I decided not to do that since he's doing me a favor. But anyway, I got to do that, and it was it's an honor and privilege to be a part of that. I mean, I just never figured, again, that people would get so much on board with this and that they would really want to be a part of it, because people get embarrassed by talking about colonoscopies, and they shouldn't be, because it's just something that's natural. I mean, there's so many people walk up and they talk about when they've gotten theirs, and there's people that have gotten them 3 years ago and go, I'm going to schedule mine again. So it's something that's really close to me now, and obviously important. And for everybody to do it has been really humbling and special to me.
So I'm going to do something that I think they teach you in PR 101 not to do. I'm going to try and do something that we haven't tested here. So last September I turned 50. Turning 50 is a daunting task for those of you that haven't been there, especially when you don't feel like you're 50. But it's daunting not because you turned 50, but because in the back of your mind you know you have to get a colonoscopy. My wife has been on me since September, and I've sort of avoided it, maybe because of embarrassment or timing or whatever. And when Rick called me to fill me in on where John was, you start thinking about listening to people who are in a spot that they don't want to be in, but have really figured out how to use that in the right way. So I'm going to call Dr. Scott Pittman, who is my oncologist, a friend of ours, and we're going to see if he answers the phone, and we're going to see if he'll actually help me schedule a colonoscopy. So here we go.
Does he have Dick Clark blood in him or what? I mean, who 50 looks like that?
Yes, Dr. Pittman, can you hear me?
This is Scott Pittman.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm great.
Hey, this is like calling in a lifeline. You know, you've seen the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I'm sitting in front of several folks in the media, and to my direct left is race car driver John Andretti, who I think you've heard the story about John and his colonoscopy plan to check it for Andretti to get everybody on board and having their colonoscopy by the time they're 50. Well, I missed by about 6 months, and so I made a commitment to John that I would call and schedule my colonoscopy, and I was wondering if maybe you could help me get that done.
I think, Doug, that's a great idea. I think getting a colonoscopy is recommended by the societies at age 50 and every 10 years for routine screening. I think that'd be a great idea. We'd be glad to do that. Well,
if you could just let me know who I need to call back as I get done here, I'll call and we'll get it done, and I'll come see you sometime in June. I'm a little busy through May 28th.
I'm not sure why, but yeah, that's going to be your priority. No, I'm kidding. That's great. Look forward to seeing you, and I think this is a great thing to be talking about, and I wish the best for John, and I hope you have a great month of May.
All right, thank you, Dr. Pittman. This is my cell number, so if you want to give that number to your scheduler, I will answer the phone when she calls.
Will do.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
for taking my call. That's cool.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, thank you. See ya.
You're welcome.
Bye.
I just have to say, wouldn't this have more impact if Doug would have done it live?
He did say they had a scope out here, but I haven't fasted or gotten ready for that. So
right.
John did suggest I could just go get a chili dog from the stand down there, and that might be
That's
be
about
good
the
enough.
same cleansing. Yeah.
So with that, I think we'll open up for some questions.
Well, I want to introduce the people next to me again. I want to talk to them because we talked about Race for Riley and obviously because I've been such a big part of it, that things have changed there as well. And so first I'd like to pass this off to Dave Wilson. Dave Wilson and I, we sort of co-founded this thing. I don't know that it came about other than the fact that we decided we were going to have some fun and said, well, who should be the benefactor? And Riley Hospital for Children has always been on our list, so it became the Race for Riley.
And passing it along, I mean, as John gets older and not his situation notwithstanding, but I think he always wanted to pass along the Race for Riley. We would like to see this go on for years and years and years, and so the obvious person to take it over would be Jarrett. And so at a lot of our functions, the Race for Riley, the whole start of it was it's an opportunity for people to pay money, donate money to Riley Hospital, and have an opportunity to get to race against John Andretti, a real race car driver. Where do you get to do that? Well, you hardly ever, that doesn't happen. So now Jarrett is going to fill his shoes so admirably and also go out and with sponsors and work with people and things like that. But on race day out at Mark Dismore's Newcastle Motorsports Park on our Race for Riley, it'll be Jarrett racing all those kids and running race after race after race, and John and I will be sitting in the shade sipping on some water. But we'll still be raising money for Riley Hospital and passing the torch off to Jarrett.
Yeah, just to give you a little bit more background, last year we celebrated our 20th year, and we raised nearly $400,000 last year. Our goal is to break the mark every year. So thanks to our great friends at Kroger and Window World and other corporate sponsors, we've been able to do that. But the biggest part has been the people in the community giving $1, $5 at a time at their local Kroger to get coupons and other things. So it's been a fun event, and I think the Race for Riley is now up to about 15 or 20 events, it seems like, for the week, because it seems like everybody's hosting an event that is connected for Race for Riley. And even just the other night, there was an auction, and they auctioned off a two-seater ride with Mario and a couple other things, and that money is going to go to the Race for Riley as well. So all this is being connected back, and it always has, and it's great to see so many ways that the money gets raised. And we aren't, like I said, we aren't a foundation. We're just a bunch of guys that run around and with our heads cut off for a few weeks. And yeah, there's Kevin Katansky. There is the hardest working man that I've ever met in my life, Kevin Katansky with Kroger. Stand up, Kevin. He has made so many things happen through Kroger, and Kevin is retiring, which we hate. We're going to run him over with a bus for letting that happen. But as we're all getting older, Dave talked about the passing along, and I want Jarrett to talk a little bit about it because he's been he started being 20 years ago that this started. He was just pretty much a young man, very young man, about 3 or 4 years old, and it's come a long way since then.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the event's 21 years old this year, and I'm 24 years old right now, and so ever since I can remember, the Race for Raleigh has been a big part of my father's life, and also it's grown into something much larger with with the rest of the family chipping in as much as we can. I think Kevin, as he mentioned, takes a lot of the work off of everybody, and Dave and Rick and Joe. They do a great job with the event, and so I'm just honored to be able to compete in it this year and take over for Dad, and I hope that next year, after it gets better, that we get to race against each other in it and race with each other. I think that would be really cool, and maybe something that we can continue to do in the future for years to come.
That'll be a big crash. That'll be a big crash. Because it's bad enough. Running Dave Calabro and Dave first off the road is enough fun. Running everybody else off is even better.
I hate to say this, John, but I saw him run above Raceway Park. I don't know there'll be any crash. I think you'll be following him.
Now there's money in it. I'm gonna have to go on a diet though.
So with that, I think we are ready to take some questions. But before we do, John, thank you so much. This is a really, really cool way to take a really difficult situation and make it meaningful, not just to you, but really making it meaningful to people who might not really have understood how important it is to get a colonoscopy when they're 50. And thank you for really doing this, not just here, but in Charlotte and at short tracks around the Midwest. I think it's really important. So with that, we'll take questions. Wolfgang.
I have 3 questions. One for the doctor to my left. If I have understood it correctly, you said this disease or illness starts with 50 or older. Can you give an explanation why is it age-related? Why not can start in younger age? Number 2, can you tell something about the symptoms? Does the patient have pain when they're positive screened? And the last question, when you check patients and they're positive screened with this illness, I think it's a very big psychological shock. Give you also some treatment against the shock?
Okay, to the first question, the national recommendations for several decades now have been to start screening the U.S. adult population at age 50. The median age for this disease is about 70 years old in this country. So it's actually a disease, of course, of older people. And so for a screening test is a test where that you do in a population of people who has absolutely no symptoms. So you're looking for illness in the absence of symptoms. It would be, of course, very difficult to do an invasive test on the entire U.S. population, starting at some other random age, 40 or 30 or 20. Can you imagine doing that? So in order to prevent the majority of cases, we have found through scientific studies that you can prevent many cancers, most cancers, by screening people at age 50. Now, that goes for people at average risk, so that's the majority of the U.S. population. People who are at higher risk, meaning people who have a first-degree relative who has colorectal cancer, that would be like a sibling or a parent, we recommend that you start earlier, so usually 40 years old, or 10 years earlier than the age at which your first-degree relative got the cancer. So, for example, if your father got a cancer at age 50, you would start screening at least at age 40. You asked what the symptoms are. In general, for early cancers, there often are no symptoms at all, but the most common one would be bleeding. However, and that's not to try to panic everybody who sees blood from time to time. Almost everybody sees a little bit of blood in their stool from time to time. And most of the time that is not an indicator of cancer, of course. Persistent bleeding should always be followed up on. But most of the bleeding that happens with early cancers is actually what's called occult bleeding or hidden bleeding, where you can't actually see it. So that's the benefit of having your stool tested for what we call occult blood or hidden blood, which we recommend people get a test like that at least once a year starting at age 50 as well. And your third question was about the psychological shock. Am I right about that? I turned 50 in a couple of months, so my memory isn't as good as it used to be. But I might even ask John to talk a little bit about the psychological shock, but I mean, I've met thousands of cancer patients now, and I can tell you that every one of them is shocked by their diagnosis. They hardly ever, expect it to come along. And I think that although we can do something to help them along the pathway that they have to travel, the emotional pathway that they have to travel early in their disease by doing things like communicating with them in warm, empathic, and important ways, helping them to understand their situation when they really want to understand their situation. I'm mostly surprised, maybe not surprised, but I admire the great resiliency of people. And I think that people like John are great examples of somebody who probably spent a few days, wondering what the heck hit him, and then decided to get up and go to work.
Yeah, I think the hardest part, is I think every oncologist have to go through chemo just so that they know. What do you think about that, Doc?
It's not a bad idea.
I think because, to me, it's real simple. You have a plan and you have steps and you just follow them. And I've got a great team of people that have worked on me. I said I have more doctors now than people I've raced against, because if I have an issue, I go see another specialist. And so they're really good about following through, to make sure that you're as comfortable as you can be. I mean, there's no way to make this poison that they put in you enjoyable, but they can certainly make it less, less so that you can live with it, and kind of work your way through it the best quality of life that you can get. So the pump that they put on me for 2 days is the worst thing for me. I hate that thing, and because I have 3 days of chemo, and that pump is psychologically in the middle of the night, that when you watch them put this chemo in you, and they're dressed like they're going to the moon, and that they don't want anything, like you're the most diseased person on the planet, because they don't want to get it on them. They give you a hazardous waste bag to go home with, and this is pumping straight into you, and you sit there and I wake up in the middle of the night, and I sit and listen to this pump going, and just know it's pumping poison, so that to me is more, I hear that pump right now, and I hate that thing, but other than that, I mean, you can get through it. I mean, I walk in there, and honestly, the thing that is really struck me the most is when every time I go to the infusion center, I'm the youngest person in there, and I'm thinking, how much I probably let my family down, because I shouldn't be this young and in here, but other people can keep that from happening. So, you get through it.
Larry.
Guys, I'm old enough to actually have had 3 screenings now. The prep is a lot worse than the actual procedure, believe me. On Race for Riley, I've been fortunate enough now to run 3 or 4 of them. I have been spun out by John on more than one occasion.
That's not true.
I was hitting the brake in front of you. Was that it?
It must have been your fault. I can't
obviously,
remember.
Yep. I just wanted to say how much fun that event is. It is absolutely a hoot. I would like to drive the car. Do you get next time?
Yeah, you can drive it. I don't
final?
care. Sure, I don't care.
Okay.
The problem is they have these seats for gigantors, and when I get in them, I can't. By the time I get out of them, I'm halfway outside the go-kart. So they put one that has a seat in it that fits me, because I have to do the most races, and everybody thinks it's a special cart, so I let them drive it.
Don't
they're not that good
them.
of drivers.
No,
trust me.
No.
That they're not going to go that much quicker if they get in a great cart.
No, it really
I'm just
is.
giving you a hard time.
It's just an absolute hoot. Really, everybody here should go and do the event. And thanks to Rick and you guys, it is just an awesome event. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
John A. Charlie Clifford, Wish TV. What were your emotions when you pulled back in here for the first time, making your return? And I know this place is familiar to you, but what was going through your mind?
Coming into the Speedway?
Yeah.
I get chills on the back. I get chills now because this is the most special place on the planet for me, for my family. It's a special time of the year, and somebody saw, I'm glad to see you, here, and I'm like, this gives me energy. This is, I can't believe they're running that I wasn't here, but evidently they can, and they do. So that's a good thing, I guess. But it just means everything, to be able to walk through here. You see so many friends, family, but it's also just that place. I mean, when you drive on it, the fact that I got to be here so many years and to race in the Indianapolis 500 is a gift. And you may not realize it when you're doing it, but when you're not doing it, you realize how much and how special it is. So this place is life to an Andretti.
And quickly, I think a lot of fans still think back to the double duty in '94. Just how crazy is that in your mind still today, and what sticks out from that?
Well, a lot of things do. I mean, it was a big challenge. I was driving for AJ and my godfather, and I had the biggest challenge was actually getting to the race and qualifying and all that, because back then I had to be in Sonoma qualifying a stock car, and I had to fly overnight to make it here so I could qualify the IndyCar. And AJ told me I needed to sit out and wait for practice to stop before, because I was in the penalty box for not being here for more practice. And fortunately, I went ahead and got in the car and qualified it without any practice. And we made the race. We ended up 10th in the race, qualifying, and I flew back to California. And I won't tell you all the story in between. I can tell you off, what all happened, because it was between him firing me and me quitting if I left, because it was raining that day. Imagine that at Indianapolis. I don't know why they don't cover this place, Doug, why don't they cover this place? I mean, Jesus, it can't be that much. Put a tarp over. And, but it was one of those times, and so it worked out perfectly. AJ was happy, I was happy, and I went off and raced the stock car. But that was the hardest moment. The day of the race, as long as it was sunny in Indy, I wanted it to rain like hell in North Carolina. And then, I still got the credit for doing the double, but it didn't. It was sunny in both places, and we had a good race. And fortunately, the race went pretty quick here. And the time frame when I did it, it was very, very tight between the two races. And then after that, they actually opened it up that it was more like 4 hours between the two races. So I want to tell you, the guys that did it after me, they had it a lot easier.
We got a mic. Lynn needs a mic.
Question for the doctor. Is colon cancer, is that a gender-related disease? Do women have to worry?
Both genders get colorectal cancer at almost equal rates, which is a little unusual among most solid tumor cancers. It's slightly more prevalent in men than in women, but both men and women are at risk. And approximately at the same age. The median age for men is around 68, and the median age for women around 72, but both around 70 years old.
John and I were talking earlier, and unfortunately had mentioned to the doctor when I went to get some blood tests that I had seen some blood in the stool, and 2 weeks later they took out 10 inches of my bowel. And John and I were talking about the fact that when I did mine, they had to operate on me. When they did his, I think they done it microscopically. Is that right, John?
Oh, no, I got the scars. It's just not as big. It's not.
Well, I'll compare with you.
It's not as big.
But
they
anyway,
don't cut you open to your heart to get your colon out anymore.
I was 70 at the time, and the doctor told me if I hadn't have been there, that would have probably ended in about a year. But the biggest thing you always hear is the day before preparation. And John and I agree that if you don't take it, that is not near as bad as taking one shot of chemo. So be sure and get that colonoscopy.
Always entertaining.
As a race driver, you get probably more physical checkups regularly than most other sports or the general public. Yet this doesn't come up until later. There's no way before you're 50 that you can ever, the doctors ever find something like that ahead of time.
Well, I
when
can't.
You're still active.
I can't answer completely that. I imagine if you have symptoms that certainly people younger than me certainly get this cancer. I mean, my colorectal surgeon was talking about people that he operates on that are 30 years old, in their 30s, that are colorectal cancer. And so it's not 50 that by then, and actually I've taken a little bit of a beating on Twitter where, 50 is too late. Well, 50 becomes the mark because that's when insurance will cover it typically, and unless you have it in your family or other extenuating circumstances. So the point is we're trying to make it so that people can do it, and they can put it on their insurance and do other things. And insurance companies want you to do it. I mean, because obviously it's a whole lot cheaper to find it early in early detection and not have this than it is to go through this process, because this gets quite expensive. And so yeah, you really don't know when it is. And for me, I actually did mine, and I used to take my IndyCar, my NASCAR, and NHRA, and I would have and they demand different things of each. Some are very similar, obviously, eye and this and that. And when I do my eye test, it wasn't whether it was 20/20. I would go to the eye doctor and we would do a full physical. So I was always on my health. So it's not the matter that I wasn't paying attention. We chart my blood for the last 15 years plus every year, and I get more and more of it because we had the PSA test, which they normally don't do. I'd say do that, and of course, and had a full examination. The only thing that was missing was a colonoscopy. And my son, Jared, we were talking about it. We've been running pretty hard for the last 4 or 5 years, running sprint cars and doing everything. And you're supposed to be a little tired, right? So why would that ever become an issue? And he said, I could have cancer because I've been running with you, and you didn't show any signs. So I mean, it's not something that you're going to sit there and go, yup, it may be me. But if you do have symptoms, then you really better address them and get in, because it's not something you may even know about. It's a silent killer in a lot of ways.
If you wouldn't mind, I'll make a quick follow-up comment. Part of this is a confusing area because what we're really talking about are what are called screening tests, and people in general don't understand what we mean by. So a screening test is a test that's done in an asymptomatic population, in people who have absolutely no symptoms, to try to find disease where it makes sort of statistical sense that you're going to find enough of them to make the test worthwhile. Does that make sense? That's different from a person who might have a set of persistent symptoms, which unfortunately many people with colorectal cancer never have. They never have any symptoms until, for example, they've had enough blood loss over 2 years' time that their blood counts are low, and they go in and they say, I'm just really tired, but they never actually saw any bleeding. So that's really, I think, the confusion around screening tests for a larger population versus tests that are aimed at diagnosing a set of symptoms in an individual.
We need to wrap this up now. Thank you all for coming. As a gift, at the front desk, there are T-shirts for the media. So see if they got the right size for you. Thank you all very much for coming.